Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors. Today's guest is my friend, Mr. Jake Hall, who is an industry advocate. How are you, Jake?
I'm doing good, Cory. It's great to be on, man.
Man, we've grown up together here the last few years we were part of the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator Program,
Yeah,
the first 100
first
in the
one.
world. Tell us about that experience. The two of us got to go through it. It was amazing from my point of view, but I would love to know your insights as that
Yeah,
experience.
so it was one of those things where I saw it like come through. Either I was forwarded or like I saw on a news thing, and that would have been in what spring of 20. Well, the application would have been fall of 2021, right?
Yes. Hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out LinkedIn as a platform for me to grow my brand, to talk more about the industry that I'm involved with. And I figured, well, geez, I'm gonna just give it a shot and say, hey, my goal is to advocate my industry.
Yep.
It has massive misconceptions about what manufacturing is, what automation does, what robots do. And we got connected, and like part of the program was to connect and collaborate with
Hmm.
other people outside of your industry as part of that 100. And you and I think chatted after one of the breakout sessions. And yeah, ever since then, it's incredible where I thought our industries were very separated, but actually
Hmm.
we've run into each other a few times at different shows or been at different events at the same time. So it's been exciting to see how that's all transpired.
I agree. And well said. LinkedIn is a platform to jump off of.
Yeah.
And it's certainly changed my life. And I know it's changed yours. I think you're over 70,000 followers or something like that on LinkedIn, which is
Yeah.
amazing. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, before we get too far, let's talk about your background a little bit. How did you get into automation and manufacturing and
Yeah.
all of that? What brought you here?
Yeah, great question. So I would have to say we jump back to when I was in high school. My first job was working for like a manufacturing company. I did what I call the grunt work of the industry, where everyone starts. I swept the floors, I brushed and cleaned down and blew off all the metal chips on lathes and manual mills and the CNC equipment. I probably smelled way too much acetone cleaning all of the steel weldments that were going into painting and grinding.
That explains a
Um,
lot.
it
Yeah.
explains a lot. It was great. In high school, I was involved with FIRST Robotics, and I knew that, hey, I love this mentality and mindset of solving problems with math and science and engineering and creativity. So went to college. I got a manufacturing engineering degree, and then went into the world of automation and distribution right out of college, where I sold a lot of different components that went into custom automation machinery, robotics, vision systems, motion control,
Wow.
PLCs, all the different components that were there. And that was a phenomenal experience because I got to see all the different aspects of what manufacturing has to offer from not just one specific industry, which is where Michigan's known for is automotive, but there was so much like food and bev and packaging and pharmaceutical and biomed devices and furniture. It really got me to see just how much manufacturing has to offer. And I've always been super passionate about like the industry and getting next generation's excited. I was involved with like coaching Lego. I coached my own Lego League teams when I was still in high school, my junior and senior year, and we did really well. We won some large awards through all that time. And so the story really transforms to where I am now with my own manufacturing Millennial, my own personal brand when the pandemic started. So I was working in outside sales and we were told to go work from home. And I figured, well, geez, my whole thing is going and having conversations in person and
Right.
talking to people. And all of a sudden, I can't do that anymore. We got to be home working in our office. A lot of like, even though a lot of the manufacturing companies were still considered essential workers, a lot of the engineers and people, unless you were a frontline worker that was physically hands on the machine, they all were still working from home. So all the engineers and business development people with internally we're all working from home, so I couldn't have that face-to-face contact. So I turned to LinkedIn at the time, which would have been spring of 2020, and I had maybe like 150 to 200 connections on that platform at the time. Right? It was strictly a what I thought was a resume builder, right? You want to
Hmm.
go out there and you want your resume digitally where people can look at your profile. Great, there it is. And I figured, well, I'll just start posting content around the industry, what the solutions are, the technology, what I'm seeing, trends. And it was really interesting because my content really started to resonate a lot more with than just my connections that I had.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden I gained 100 followers that month. And then I gained 100 followers then the next week. And then all of a sudden I gained 100 followers in a day. And it was like one of those things where, okay, people really enjoy the content. I think my personality is one that people can relate to. I'm very energetic and passionate about it. And I think it's during a time when we always heard negativity. I tried
Yes.
to push positivity into what we were talking about, and it really resonated with a lot of people. So fast forward to a few years later, I started doing more partnerships. I grew several thousands and tens of thousands of followers. And now all of a sudden, fast forward today, I'm now full-time on my own in the industry where I'm doing a combination of things: keynote speaking at associations or trade shows and events, working with those trade shows for promotion, working with a lot of individual companies to highlight applications and technologies and solutions that they're bringing to the industry to share with my audience, because my audience is 70,000 plus industry professionals. Like, I know my target audience is a lot of people's ideal customer demographic. And it's one of those things where when I'm doing these partnerships, is very much, it's not a sales thing. It's like, hey, is it relatable to me? Can I actually create value on it? And not so much highlighting your product, but highlighting the problems that we're solving in the industry. And I think people really resonated with that when I create content and the content isn't salesy. It's more just, hey, I'm going to entertain you and I'm going to make it educational. Here's the post. And I think a lot of people really resonate and enjoy that.
Exactly. And I think you and I are very similar in that point of view where we're taking a positive scope. We're
Yeah.
we're only focusing on what is positive and what can be fixed. What
Yeah.
what could be the result of a positive move. If we did this could
Yeah,
happen.
exactly. And that's how I to underline, like, not avoid the issues that are out there. For example, like within manufacturing, we're doing a horrible job connecting the next generation. We're
Mhm.
not doing a great job bringing more women into manufacturing. So those are topics that we need to talk about, but you talk about it in a way that's going to show what positivity it can create from it, not just
Yeah.
staying on the negativity, but saying, hey, this is why we can no longer stay here. This is where we need to go.
Yeah. That's excellent points. Have you developed any programs with anyone where you can bring young people or women or minorities or anything into the industry to help make it more sustainable for the future?
Yeah, so there's a few programs I'm involved with. By no means did I create them,
No.
but it's one of those things where change doesn't happen from an individual; it happens from a community. So there's a few that I'm super passionate about here in West Michigan, where I am. One of them is Discover Manufacturing, and that wrapped up about a month ago. This is being recorded in December, so just people with time frame. So fall of 2023, if you're listening to this, we had an event called Discover Manufacturing. So we had our goal of, we're still getting all the numbers from the schools, but the goal between 8 to 10,000 high school students to go into end user and manufacturing companies. So around 60 or 70 companies to get real world experience of what does it mean being inside of a manufacturer? What are jobs are available? What are the different avenues that you can take in terms of education, right? You don't need to go to college to get a 4-year engineering degree to be in manufacturing. You can go
Right.
and be a part of a vocational school while you're still in high school. You can become an apprentice. You can go to a local community college. You can go get an engineering degree. So the big thing is
Right.
dispelling the myth that, hey, you have to have a 4-year engineering degree to do this. That's not the case. But also just talk about the diversity what manufacturing has to offer, right?
Mm.
We were told by our parents who grew up in the 80s and 90s and saw manufacturing have a shift and jobs go overseas, and
Right.
manufacturing was this dark, dirty doll industry in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's changed a lot now. There's a lot more talk about technology, innovation, and sustainability coming from your side of
Good.
the things. And all of a sudden, we need to then change the outlook and the perception of what manufacturing is. And the best way to do that is to bring kids in to these facilities to see them in person. So that's one. The other one that's going to be happening in the spring of 2024 is called My Career Quest. And so what we're doing is we're renting out our convention center here in Grand Rapids. And our goal is to bring in, and we're bussing in around 8,500 students to meet with companies in person to talk with them. So there's going to be 5 industry segments that we're looking at. And then they can go in and they go 15 minutes at each industry segment, or about 15 to 20 minutes at each industry segment. And then they can go and talk to the companies, and they're interactive, right? A couple of the rules that we have is like, there's no branding that they can have as a company, right? You can't hand out business cards that say your company name on it. You can't hand out give me's that say company hand. This is strictly for advocating the industry. Like we're coming together as a whole to move the industry forward together. So it's not just a sales pitch per company. It's free for companies. Like if a company wants to go there and advocate, it's free. They can get a 10 by 10 booth or whatever they need for free. Now, there's costs to that as well. So part of what I'm trying to do is raise about $150,000, which costs to get the walls, the tables, the chairs, the staff, the cost of buses to bring kids in. And it's like, that's what we're doing. And like, I think that's the change that we see is we can post on social media, we can talk about change, but we need to act on change. So you look at in a 6-month period of time, we're impacting 20,000, the goal of 20,000 kids who are still in high school, who can make decisions about their future. That's change. And like, and that's how we move an industry forward. And the great thing about it is every community can do this. It's like we're not doing a special sauce or a special recipe. It's like, get a group of great volunteers who are passionate about this. A lot of times it's companies who are working in there and they're in the recruiting or the HR or the acquisition type of thing, and they get on board and they support it. And that's what we do.
That's exciting. It's exciting to be a part of the change for the next generation and to provide them with opportunities. My nephew's 18. He just got back from his first semester in college, and he's like, I don't know if it's for me. And I said, well, that's okay. He said he wants to go into a trade, and maybe that's manufacturing, maybe that's a plumber, electrician, something like that. Are you seeing, with the onset of AI, are you seeing, this is a 2-part question, are you seeing manufacturing change with that technology? And then are you seeing the need for equipment changing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. AI, I would say, is just one of the things that we're seeing change the industry. There's a lot of opportunity, but there's also a lot of buzz around AI. Is ChatGPT going to impact manufacturing in a dramatic way? Probably not. But at the same time, I see AI impacting a lot more actual white collar than blue collar in a lot of areas, right? A lot of us were doing Excel sheets and data and trending predicting. Like that's a thing that's impacting like jobs to individuals. AI though is like great at like modeling and predictive maintenance and condition monitoring for a lot of facilities, right? You can go out there and you can plug a vibration or a temperature sensor onto a side of a machine or a motor, and all of a sudden you can be building models to give you the best idea of when that component is wearing down or heating up or would need maintenance, right? That's a great thing. AI is impacting a lot of vision applications. So all of a sudden you can build libraries to do visual analysis, where all of a sudden I can now pick really complex parts and random orientations, which is what we see in real world industry, to make robotic applications a lot more integral. And I think just as a whole, as we're seeing within manufacturing as an industry, as jobs become less physical and more intelligent, we need to shift in the manufacturing industry where, let's face it, we're never going to have more workers than we do now in manufacturing. Right now, we have about 12.9 million people working in manufacturing in the United States. Even though the GDP or the total economic impact of manufacturing is going to continue to grow, we're going to see a decrease in workers. And I think what's going to happen is just manufacturing's going to have less, I would say, low labor, low skill jobs and more higher skilled, higher paid jobs, where all of a sudden it's not just a technician, it's now a robot technician or a PLC programmer, right? As we implement automation into manufacturing, jobs aren't being removed. It's just the types of jobs are being removed and shifting. But that's just general economics and trends, right? We don't complain about the combine or the tractor that was on a farm
Right.
in the 1920s and 30s, when all of a sudden we could now manage 100 acres of cropland versus 15 acres of cropland with an oxen in that way. And so it's just one of those things where it's a trends, it's just a shift that's happening in the industry. And we could never have new jobs if we always did things the old way. And I think that's just what we're going to see in manufacturing. But like the other thing that I would argue is like AI, for example, with that tool and other technologies, it's allowing so many smaller companies, small to medium sized businesses to be competitive in what is now not just
Hmm.
I guess you could say, a regional or a state or a domestic, but now an international competition. So all of a sudden,
Great.
when CNC machine shop down the street is trying to make parts for a tier two automotive company, and their prices are twice as high compared to a company that's completely overseas and a very low cost Asian labor market, how could they be competitive? Well, you introduce a robot that can do lights out machine tending. Now all of a sudden you can run that machine. It still has to be loaded and managed by a worker, but now you can run that robot twice as long, or that machine twice as long. So what is
Yeah.
that doing? It might not be creating a new job because we have a robot, but that's saving the jobs of
Yeah.
that 16, 20, 25 employee company, because they're now able to stay competitive in what's a global economy. So I
Yeah.
always like to point out robots, for example, just like AI. I don't think in short term, yes, they might take jobs, they might remove people out of positions, but long term, big picture, I
Right.
think robots and this technology is what's going to allow a lot of small to medium sized businesses, which keep in mind is 98.6% of all manufacturers here in the United States classify as a small to medium sized business.
Hmm.
98.6%. Like it's just astronomical in spectrum size. And that technology is what allows these companies to stay competitive, to stay in business, and to really, at the end of the day, keep their local community going,
Yeah.
because they're hiring people that are local, and allows them to compete with the big boys at big multi-million-dollar facilities.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
I think that's brilliant, and I can totally relate as a packaging professional. I've actually had a customer say, "We don't want any automation equipment because we don't want to fire anybody."
Yeah.
And I said, "That's not the intention here. The intention is to upgrade their jobs,
Yeah.
make them even more valuable to you and to the company. And eventually their pay will increase rather than they'll be eliminated because like you said, they're gonna operate the robot. They're gonna
Yeah.
handle the tech system that's been integrated. It's like you said, short term, yes, that could eliminate, but it can then promote or grow
Yeah.
uh, and increase your efficiency and all these things. I'd like to talk a little bit about how automation and how manufacturing is moving towards sustainability in a faster and a greater way.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Any specific questions, or you just want me to talk and talk about what I'm seeing?
Well, the question is, and what we're calling it is the green bottom line.
Okay.
And how are people improving their green bottom line,
Yeah.
meaning being better for the environment through automation and
Yeah.
through manufacturing equipment?
Yeah. So I would think there's a two-way approach that I'm seeing right now. One is when you look at what this next generation of workforce wants to be a part of, right? The millennials and the Gen Zs, the young ones, they want to be a part of a company that is focused on an impact larger than themselves.
Yeah.
And one of those main talking points in a lot of areas is sustainability. They don't want to go work for a company that's polluting
Yep.
the environment around them. They want to see a company that's creating good beyond the product in which they make. So I think there a lot of companies are seeing pressure from a new generation to see, we want to do good with what we're doing and what we're making. The other one is, I think a lot of companies are seeing there is an actual value in return to being more sustainable in costs. And I see a lot of that when it comes to within manufacturing. Not like let's talk about like sustainability from recycling, but let's talk about like sustainability within efficiency, right?
Yes.
Manufacturers as a whole are one of the largest energy consumers in
Yes.
terms of industry. in the United States. I don't know the exact numbers, but I've seen it, and manufacturing's, if not the top, they're in the top. And one of those things was at the bottom line, the green line, as we're talking, representing the dollar. If you can go out there and you can reduce the amount of energy consumption that's happening, you can find ways to reduce the amount of compressed air is extremely expensive with the manufacturing. If you
Yeah.
go out ways and say, I'm going to reduce air leakage, I'm going to reduce scrap rate. It's not just quote unquote for the environment. A lot of times it's just making you more competitive. When we look at overall equipment of effectiveness, which is a big metric that a lot of companies try and track,
Hmm.
OEE, scrap is very much a part of that heavy equation. And
Yeah.
at the end, the scrap isn't sustainable. So it's one of those things where I think a lot of companies are seeing as margins are getting tighter. They're getting more demand from their customer. Instead of going out and buying a brand new set of equipment, can you go out there and make the existing equipment more efficient and more profitable? And a lot of times that's reducing scrap, that's reducing energy efficiency, that's monitoring your energy consumption. If it's one of those things where, let's say you're running 3 different shifts, and during one of your shifts, one of these machines has to run 8 hours a day, can you track what the best time to use that energy to keep that peak demand lower
Yeah.
as tracking? I think a lot of times companies would just process when it was most available. And all of a sudden people, when the people are looking at each one machine and they're seeing how much power they're drawing on each line or a piece of equipment, they can be much more focused. And I guess, what's the word I'm looking for, Cory? Intentional
Yeah.
with how they're running the manufacturing shop floor and the manufacturing business.
Yeah.
So like that would be an answer like around sustainability. I think a lot of times it's a tough subject because a lot of times like, I went to a conference and it was an association, and it just like I talked and read the crowd. It was probably 300 or 400 people, and they were just getting shoved down their throat
Yeah.
on sustainability. And it came over. There were some European speakers. There was a French speaker. No offense to French listeners on this. You guys are dry. You're drier than your wine. But like it was one of those things where the biggest way to discourage change is just to tell people why they're wrong. Rather
Right.
than going in there and saying, look at ways that you can improve the cash flow and the capex that's coming into
Hmm.
your business. And so what needs to happen a lot of times with a lot of these manufacturers who are very proud of the businesses that they created and the things that they do, the way they approach is just as critical as what the approach is.
Excellent point. I'm so
And
thankful that you answered it that way because I had an analogy that I was going to share.
yeah,
I interviewed a trucking company
yeah,
and they were going through a sustainability audit, and they found out that their mechanics were having to refill the refrigerant in the refrigerated trucks
yeah,
all the time.
yeah,
And they couldn't figure out why. And then what they did was they went through and they fixed all the leaks. And not only did it make them more sustainable because they were not off
yeah,
gassing this refrigerant or whatever it's called, I don't
yeah,
know, but it's a huge cost savings to the
yeah,
point where I think it paid for one of the mechanics' salaries. It was that big.
yeah,
So one of those people saved their career or paid for themselves by finding these things. So you're exactly right. You have an intention, you're intentionally trying to be more sustainable. And oh, look here, we're going to save money too.
yeah, yeah. And so that's the approach that I would say needs to happen within manufacturing
Yeah.
is it's sustainability is not a new talk in
Mhm.
manufacturing, right? It was there, we heard it. Sustainability has become very much political now in a
Yeah.
lot of areas. And it's one of those things, it shouldn't be a political discussion. Like being sustainable is not a green political movement. It's at the end of the day, it's how to improve your company's bottom line in a lot of areas. And I think that's just one of those, and that's the approach that needs to happen.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, waste reduction, all these
Yeah.
things, they all fall under this umbrella term of
Yeah.
sustainability. And I think that's why a lot of people say, well, sustainability doesn't mean anything. Well, sustainability means everything. It's like,
Yeah.
well, what's the answer?
And I think the thing to highlight though is sustainability just as it just a material aspects. Like sustainability can we can see through so many digital solutions now as well. It's not just emptying out the scrap bin
Yeah.
less. It's there's so many ways that we can make it really impactful.
Yeah. Let's talk about your sidekick, your robot dog.
Yes.
I I want to talk about this because I think he or it is amazing.
Ah, I actually have it
Oh,
right next to me by chance.
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I was working on it a little bit earlier today.
Tell us about it. What do you call it? What is it? How has it changed the way you do things?
Yeah. So the name of it is Clark. Clark, the manufacturing mascot. It's a quadruped robot. I have three of them now, actually. And so for me, it's while these robots are very much can be used for industrial applications like mobile IoT and monitoring platforms and walking through manufacturing facilities and construction sites to acquire and access data to give you more real-time information. This is very much of an outreach tool for me and a promotional tool for me too, right? You go to a trade
Yeah.
show and you bring a robot, every cell phone comes out and you can take pictures of it and videos and people love it, but at the same time bring it into schools and events. I brought this into just in the past like 3 weeks, past month, like 3 or 4 different Lego League and First Tech and Vex competitions just to let kids play with it, or high school students or open houses. They love it. And it's one of those things you can have discussions, and you can have discussions with the parents around what manufacturing is now, the impact that it's creating. And at the same time, I'm looking at it as where, hey, if there's a business out there that is wants to make their exhibition booth a little bit cooler, you can rent a robot from me. We'll
Yeah.
slap your company logo and a wrap around it, and it's going to draw people into your booth. And that's a great marketing tool as well.
Well, I was introduced to your sidekick at LinkedIn
Yeah.
headquarters, where we got to go together in Chicago because of our, well, just the work we're doing with LinkedIn. It's really exciting. But talk about a group of people just enamored with what you're doing. Immediately, the second you turn it on, everybody stops and looks at it and, wow, what's this? This is really cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great conversation creator. I brought it to Detroit for a Lions tailgate party and they made it on Monday Night Football on TV.
Oh,
So
awesome.
it was one of those things. It's people even outside the industry, you can have great conversations around what is manufacturing today, what is robotics today. It's not a Black Mirrors episode where a robot's going to come and try and chase you down and kill you. It really has a lot of real world applications. That's exciting.
So you said you have three. Are they all named Clark, or are they?
No, one's named Clark. I'm gonna name the other one probably Harry Carey. I'm gonna go with the Cubs theme. So one's gonna be Harry Carey, and then I was thinking maybe the other one like Bill Murray or
Yeah,
Murray because Bill Murray is a huge Chicago Cubs fan. So figure out Harry Carey, Bill Murray, Clark, and go from there.
that's awesome. Well, I think it's incredible. I did want to ask you a little bit about, as a keynote speaker, you're speaking in front of hundreds or sometimes even thousands of
Yeah.
people. Can you tell us a little bit about what's your favorite part of that?
People making people laugh and sharing my passion.
Yeah.
Like I love talking to people. Like for me,
Mhm.
for some people, there's stage fright. I would say give me 1,000 people and
Yeah.
45 minutes of their time, and I'm gonna make them laugh. And I'm gonna make them laugh talking about an industry that a lot of times is rather boring, right? Manufacturing a lot of times is engineers. Let's face it, a lot of engineers are very dull. And being able to make conversations around technology, workforce, manufacturing, automation, exciting and is a skill set I would say I'm very thankful I've been blessed with.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I love going out giving presentations at different events, and either through a corporate trade show or an association or internally for a larger company, they're having their own like little HR summit or marketing summit, having me come in and give them a presentation is really enjoyable. So either if it's 1,000 or if it's 25 or 50, it's really fun to do.
I agree. And it's a different experience every time.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's so awesome to connect with people in a way that is memorable for both of you.
Yeah,
Uh, well said.
absolutely.
Well, how do people get in touch with you when they're ready to have you be a keynote speaker for them or just want to work with you?
Yeah, I would say the best place is find me on the platform on LinkedIn. Like, if you're not on LinkedIn, I would encourage you to get there because there's so much value in it in that area. So LinkedIn would be huge. If you want to go on the website, themanufacturingmillennial.com, you can find me that way. I am on all social platforms. So I don't have the following like you do on TikTok, but I am on TikTok. I do have, a couple thousand followers on
Yeah, you
there.
do.
It's great. LinkedIn, my website, or just email me, jake@themanufacturingmillennial.com.
Well, thank you, sir. Really appreciate this. And it's been so fun to grow up with you in this industry and be in our own niche, but support each other. So thank you for
Absolutely.
that. I
Cory, thanks for
appreciate you.
having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.